Hey, and welcome to the Rod Kirby Show, the show and podcast that covers the ever-expanding world of film and entertainment. I got a quick question for you. If I told you I was going to produce 12 Western feature films in only 12 months, would you believe me? Well, that's exactly what filmmaker Travis Mills did in 2020. With budgets ranging from $1,200 all the way up to $50,000, he successfully produced each film with the final movie, Heart of the Gun, debuting on December 18th. Join us as we discuss Travis's inspiration for the 12 Westerns project, some of the many challenges of producing each film, Travis's movie making tips, and much more on today's episode of The Rod Kirby Show. 12 Westerns in 12 months. This is incredible, and I'm so excited to bring on the filmmaker that put all this together, Mr. Travis Mills. Travis, welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me on, Rod. I appreciate it.
Man, I don't know where to start because when I was I was scrolling through Facebook, and first of all, a big shout out to my friend Jaron Lockridge, another filmmaker, who actually said he mentioned you, and I was like, there's no way anyone can produce 12 Western feature films in 12 months. It's not possible. Can't be possible. It's got to be a trick. So I looked you up and saw that you actually have a huge community on Facebook and on YouTube and on Twitter and other places where you actually did this and during a pandemic, and that's incredible. So what is the story behind this amazing project?
Well, it definitely was a crazy one and got crazier as it went along. But basically, back in 2013, I made a project called 52 Films in 52 Weeks. Now, these were short films. They were all based off of public domain short stories by Edgar Allan Poe, James Joyce. And that was kind of a training ground. After that, I'd already made probably 6 features at that point. So after that, I said, well, what's next? What's the next big project? 12 feature films, one every month. But then I thought that's not hard enough because I'm nuts. Because I thought, they could always all be like one location, all set in a hotel room kind of features, nothing wrong with those, but not very challenging. So what genre would be interesting to pick? And the Western came to mind because I've always loved Westerns. And this would be a good chance to show to see if you could make 12 very different kinds of Westerns too. And that's one thing I'm the most proud of from the project is not just completing the films, but the fact that they're all very different from each other. No film is alike. So that's really cool. And we picked such a great year for it. I'm a lucky person, picked the year that the world almost ended with COVID. We didn't see that coming, and it certainly changed the nature of the project, but we stuck to it. A lot of people said that we should quit, and but we didn't quit. We finished it.
Wow. So you have already been, a pretty experienced filmmaker when you started this project. And a little birdie told me that not only did you choose Westerns because it's something that you enjoy, but you chose Westerns because you're bat crap crazy about Westerns and you really love them too.
It's such a cool genre. It's just there's so many different things you can do with it. Western musicals, horror Westerns, comedy Westerns. You can do something more traditional and you can do something more modern, and we did it all. The first one was actually Bastards Crossing in Mississippi.
Bastards Crossing. Okay. So when you first started this project, and you already had the script in place, or did you take time to write the script, develop it, and then you went into production in 2020?
No, so we had several of the scripts already in place during 2019. Bastards Crossing was written by a friend of mine named Joe Peavy, who I was a retired police officer, kind of caught the bug for movies when working on my Dixie Mafia movie as a police consultant. And then he ended up writing a couple of plays, one of which I still am supposed to make. It's a barrel racing movie that would have been one of the 12 Westerns, but you can't really do a live sports movie during COVID,
Right.
So long story short, he wrote this script, Bastards Crossing, because I wanted a simple Western set in one location. It ended up being nothing, but it was not simple at all.
Uh-huh.
There was an enormous amount of weather we had to deal with in January in Mississippi,
Mm-hmm.
and stagecoaches and wagons and all kinds of stuff. But that was the first film that really kicked it off. And then most of the scripts were in place, but because of COVID, we had to move projects and ditch projects and create new ones that could
Mm-hmm.
be made on a lower budget with a smaller team during the pandemic.
Right. So you had to move pretty, or be, stay pretty flexible during the pandemic. What other challenges came up throughout production? Because I know, I mean, it's got to be crazy. You've got horses, you've got costumes, you've got all these different props. How did it all come together, and what was your biggest challenge for the different 12 productions that you had?
Oh man, the challenges were so many, and
Hmm.
and I write about them in a journal that I'm now publishing as a book
Okay,
in a couple weeks, actually, on
awesome.
Amazon, and it'll kind of go into what I experienced throughout the year because I was keeping this journal.
Mm.
And the challenges were everything from porta potties, right? You know what I mean? People's
Right.
making sure people have a place to poop,
Hmm.
to finding funding for the
Right.
movies, and everything in between. Troublesome actors, people
Mm.
flaking,
Yeah.
um, dealing with extreme heat when we got into the summertime. All kinds of different things came our way.
Hmm.
There was no one biggest challenge, but I mean, we even, had tragedy. We had someone commit suicide after one of
Oh,
our productions. So it was
wow.
a very wild year full of
Hmm.
everything from love to death and
Yeah.
everything in between. But yeah, I think, every film was also not just a different story, but such a different animal. Some
Hmm.
of them were made for $10,000 or less. Others were made for $50,000 or a little bit more. So
Hmm.
every film kind of was its own beast, so to speak.
Hmm. Wow. Well, in staying within the different challenges that you had, filmmaker Jaron Lockridge, when we ask you, he says, how did you keep your focus and didn't experience any burnout throughout the span of some 2+ years of development and production of your 12 westerns?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's interesting that one of my cinematographers, Jared, brought that up during 2019 about
Hmm.
whenever he talked about the project with friends and thought about it himself, he thought about burning out being a
Right.
problem. That really wasn't a problem during 2020 because
Mhm.
there's just so much momentum and adrenaline when you're making films.
Right.
And that's what it was for me, what it always is. And it was like a nonstop production. I mean, I would wrap one film, maybe at most have a week in between to before I made the next film. Now that
Hmm.
week or the days off in between films were not vacation days or even break days.
Right.
These were work days prepping for the next film. It was
Right.
just
Yeah.
nonstop. It never ended. And I, didn't really catch my breath. And I still haven't to some degree. So in terms of focus and burning out, it's actually more this year. See, this year working on post production for the
Mm.
movies and
Yeah.
releasing them every month has been actually more difficult because it doesn't have the adrenaline
Oh, yeah.
rush of being on set and making a film, but you still have to be as disciplined. So really, I still have not caught my breath, and
Hmm.
I will finally be able to after I premiere the last of the 12 this December.
And I believe the last of the 12 is Heart of the Gun, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Okay. Heart of the Gun is making its debut in, is it Tempe, Arizona? Is Tempe? How do you pronounce that?
Tempe.
Tempe, Arizona. Well, let's take a look at
Yeah.
Heart of the Gun, the trailer for Heart of the Gun, and we'll come back and discuss. So this is your trailer for Heart of the Gun. Let's take a look.
Showed me the way.
Awesome. That looks pretty awesome, man. That's great. Well,
Yeah,
how do
I'm
you
excited
feel
to put it up.
watching that?
Well, I mean, it's my own work, so it's always mixed feelings watching it. But
Hmm.
this is a film that is very personal to me. I wrote the script in 2014,
Hmm.
and put a lot of my own self into the movie.
Hmm.
Um, and so probably my most personal movie to date, sort of disguised as a violent romantic western. And so I put a lot into it, put all my energy into also The Last of the 12. And I
Hmm.
think as I get close to showing it, for me it feels like a culmination of everything I've done over the last 10 years. Everything I've learned is kind of all in this movie.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I'm really excited and happy for you. Not only just because of this amazing scope of the project, but that you finally get to just put it all out there and get that monkey off your back. So I know as a
Yeah.
filmmaker, there's so much that goes into every project. Everything is personal. Everything has a piece of you in it. It can be draining. It can totally be draining on you and people around you. So I'm just happy that you're able to just kind of release it.
Yeah, it'll be good to be done and then to kind of move forward and see what the next step is.
Hmm. And what do you think might that next step be? Any plans that you're working on? Will there be 52 feature films in 52 weeks?
No way. No way. I think I'm done challenging myself in terms of, quantity and a specific
Hmm.
amount of time.
Hmm.
That doesn't interest me as much anymore. I've kind of done it.
Yeah.
But I really started to enjoy acting a lot while I was making the 12 westerns. My roles in the movies kind of grew
Hmm.
as the film progressed, and I'd like to explore that more.
Yeah.
I'd also like to finally take some time to write both fiction, potentially novels, and screenplays. All of my writing has been quite rushed on a deadline, but I'd
Hmm.
like to take some more time, maybe learn some lessons from the films I've made, and write better screenplays for future films. And then finally, I recently worked on a movie in Montana with some
Hmm.
pretty great people. Producer Dallas Sonye, who produced Bone Tomahawk, and Gina Carano from Haywire and The Mandalorian.
Awesome.
So I got to help produce that, kind of work as a Western consultant, act in
Hmm.
it, do some stunts in it, so that
Hmm.
maybe I'll work on other people's films, westerns and otherwise. We'll see.
It's a bit different once you're not in charge over the production. It's like you can just go in, kind of do your job, and kind of go home, right?
Yeah, it's super different. It's both easier in some respects and more difficult in others. I'm
Hmm.
very used to being a boss,
Right.
very used to having the responsibility on my shoulders. And there's something nice about that because at the end of the day, you know that you did your best and that was reflected.
Hmm.
Where when other people are in charge, you really have to trust and respect them. And
Right.
one thing I've learned over the years is really shouldn't be working with people that you don't fully trust and respect, even if you disagree with them. I've had
Hmm.
people work with me who I think are constantly doubtful of the decisions I'm making. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it just
Hmm.
means they should go work with someone else.
Hmm.
And likewise, I wouldn't work a second time with someone who I didn't respect, even when I disagreed with them.
Makes sense. Now, I think
Yeah.
one thing that really impressed me with the project overall. I mean, of course, the scope of the project is amazing. That you even got this far and you actually did it. But what was really impressive to me was the amount of community that you built around it, and how people in the community really assisted you and supported you, and not only just money but also in supplies and horses and all this. I just hear a lot of different stories about that. What can you say about the community that's around your films and your projects? How did they really lift you up during the pandemic and the production of 12 westerns in 12 months?
Well, that's really started a long ways back, even before the 12 Westerns.
Mm-hmm.
My movies have always been very community based, whether they were in Arizona or Mississippi, and
Mm-hmm.
really relied on the community to make it happen, whether it was someone cooking us food or providing lodging or
Right.
being volunteers. At the same time, basically, most of my films have featured local actors, some
Mm-hmm.
of which have never acted before. In
Mm-hmm.
some of the 12 Westerns, people either have been acting for years and had their first lead role ever, or
Right.
maybe they have been a background extra and finally got a couple speaking parts, or I literally just cast them off the street from an audition and
Mm.
fulfilled kind of a bucket list item. The lead actress and the woman who robbed the stagecoach never acted a day in her life.
Really?
So yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So I've loved doing that both before the 12 Westerns and here. So it's kind of a give and take with the community
Mm-hmm.
is them putting a lot of love and support into the projects and then sort of giving these opportunities back to them that they would most likely never have on a bigger budgeted film.
Right.
It definitely the 12 Westerns wouldn't have been possible without a lot of people. So yeah, it's incredible. I don't really know. One thing I've learned over the years is that it's very hard to sustain that
Mm-hmm.
community. A lot of times it kind of comes and goes with the project. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're working in Mississippi, um, might be there for that film, but then the next time you come back, you have to find new people.
Right.
So it's not something that's necessarily sustainable, but at the same time, it's something I'm very grateful for.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Uh, you mentioned the woman that who robbed the stagecoach. That film
Mhm.
was shot on iPhone, right?
Yes, it was the first Western, feature length Western, at least, to be shot on an iPhone.
Wow. Was that a intentional decision, or was it budgetary in thought? What made you do it on iPhone?
No, it was intentional.
Hmm.
I wanted to shoot one of the 12 on an iPhone. I knew that
Okay.
from the start. I'd done
Hmm.
music videos and maybe some behind the scenes, obviously on an iPhone. But I thought it would be intriguing, and most of my cinematographers thought it was a terrible idea.
Of course.
But I insisted that it was very, very interesting experiment. I kept
Hmm.
looking for the right story to do it. And a couple of the other Westerns, I thought maybe this is it, maybe that's it. But then finally, the story of Pearl Hart seemed like the right one because anyone who's familiar with what's called the French New Wave from the 60s, where kind of these French filmmakers broke all the rules, used handheld cameras on the
Right.
streets for the first time, it has an immediacy that
Hmm.
I wanted to capture with the Pearl Hart movie, with her story. And the iPhone felt like the right tool for that because my hope was that we would get a feeling like we were really there,
Hmm.
and it would have a less polish feeling and more of a raw type of vibe to it.
Hmm. Well, let's take a look at the trailer for that because I really want folks to
Okay.
see how great a job you did with an iPhone. And what before we even look at that, what iPhone was it? Was it iPhone 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
So this time,
15,
this is the 11 Pro Max.
11 Pro
11 Pro
Max?
Max with the three lenses. Yep.
Okay, well, let's take a look at this trailer and then we'll come back and talk about it. So, this is the woman who robbed the stagecoach.
Buffalo gals, won't you come out tonight? Come out tonight. Come out tonight. Oh, Buffalo gals, won't you come out tonight? And we'll dance by the light of the moon. As I was walking down the street, oh, down the street, a pretty little gal I chanced to meet, and we danced by the light of the moon. Buffalo gals, won't you come out tonight? Come out tonight, oh, come out tonight. Buffalo gals, Won't you come out tonight and we'll dance by the light of the moon?
All right. That's cool, man. It's awesome. So with the
Yeah.
the iPhone, I mean, did you have any particularly any special equipment that you use, or any apps that you use that you or any other tools that made production easy or easier?
So, yeah, we use the Filmic Pro app, and that's what they used on the movie Tangerine, which went to
Right.
Sundance, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of the film that really, at least on a wide level, exposed filmmakers to the idea of using an iPhone on a feature film.
Mm-hmm.
So I started using Filmic Pro. It allows you to shoot in 24 frames a second. It allows you to do control focus, control exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, though, we decided that we really didn't want to rig the iPhone out, because sometimes filmmakers do so to the point where it's like, why aren't you just using a regular camera?
Right.
I
Yeah.
wanted to use it bare bones with the $8 app, just to show people it's like, this is what you can actually do with the phone that's in your pocket, not
Mm-hmm.
spend another $500 on extra stuff to make your phone cool. Just that you can do it with your phone.
Yeah. That's pretty impressive, man. And with all the films, you mentioned that that you had budgets as low as $1,000 and as high as 50,000. Was that correct?
Yeah, the lowest budget one was $1,200, my
1,200.
stimulus check. Yeah,
But you see where that money went. It went right on the screen.
exactly. Yes, it did. Every dollar.
Were there any particular strategies that you employed for fundraising? I mean, I saw that you ran a GoFundMe for general production. I mean, were there other things that you did? Were there investors involved? Were there other smaller fundraisers that you did? What kind of things did you do to kind of raise the budget for each project?
The GoFundMe, we ended up raising only about, I think, $20,000 during the entire project. So, very little of that got put into the budgets, spread out a little bit here and there. But most of the money came from investors, both
Okay.
investors that I had worked with before on
Mm-hmm.
films like Blood Country, and I was able to make their money back, and then they reinvested in this and other films. And then also new investors that I'd never worked with before, finding them along the way.
Right.
So that's probably remains the hardest thing about making independent movies, self sort of produced independent movies. It's finding the money. And it was difficult. And then some of the smaller budgeted films, I had to fund them myself out of
Right.
pocket. I would pay myself a little bit from one Western so that I could fund the next one,
Right.
and add it all up. But yeah, it was difficult. But it's also a rewarding process to basically have these people trust you with their money, and then to start to see some of that money come back as you release the movies, and hopefully that continues more and more, and that most, if not all, of the films end up being profitable.
Right. And what's your distribution strategy for each film? Are you doing? I know that a couple of them are on Amazon right now, right?
Yeah. So for years, I've been using Amazon Video Direct, which
Okay.
allows filmmakers to get your work on yourself without a distributor. Now that was lucrative. Back in 2017, 2018, you could actually make a lot of money on Amazon Video Direct. Nowadays, it's much more difficult. Amazon has kind of changed what they pay filmmakers, which is regrettable. I still use it. Most of the movies I keep only rent and purchase. I don't put them on Prime for free, because you literally get paid a penny for every hour your movie is streamed most of the time, which means that even if you get streamed 100,000 hours, which is a lot of strangers watching your movie, then you only get $1,000. So they've made it very difficult. However, there's new avenues opening up for filmmakers. Like there's a service called Tubi, Tubi. It's free, but it's ad based. Unfortunately, there's no way for filmmakers filmmakers to get their own content out there. So you do have to go through some kind of distributor or sales agent. And I have someone that I've been working with this year to get the content on there. So far, I like working with them. And then I have another person who buys my DVD rights, not for all of the movies, but for some of them. And he getting the movies in Walmart. So example, Texas Red, the second of the 12 Westerns that we made in Mississippi, actually hit Walmart shelves this week. It was the first of them. And I went to Walmart today to go find it. And at least at the Walmart that I went to, it was sold out.
Oh, nice.
It was empty. So that's hopefully a good sign. I don't make any of that money because I've sold the DVD rights to him, but it's still incredible exposure, obviously, for your film to meet Walmart.
Absolutely. So are you I assume you're partnering with your distributors as well, your sales agents, or whoever's on your team to put out your marketing efforts, and do you have anything in particular that you're doing to kind of drive awareness to the films?
Well, I've tried to use social media as much as I possibly can and build a community, especially on Facebook. That's where we've had the most support. And continuing to try to grow that and learn how to use it better, learn how to use Instagram better. That's kind of the base that, when we put a movie out, they will initially watch it. However, and what's necessary for it to do really, really well is for a bunch of strangers to watch it. What I've learned with the Western genre is that there are strangers who will pay for your movie on Tubi, Amazon, whatever, because it's a Western, because there's not a whole lot of Westerns being made. And the people who love them want to see content. So I saw that with Blood Country back in 2017. I've seen it so far with Bastards Crossing. People are watching these movies not because they have movie stars in them, but because they are Westerns. I don't have a lot of advertising money, so pretty much it's kind of give it an initial boost and then see how it evolves over time. With these distribution partners, they're doing a couple extra things here and there. But a lesson I learned early on with distribution is, these distributors or sales agents take tons of movies, not just your movies, but 20, 30 movies at a time. And they don't give each film equal, attention. They're going to follow the movies that do best. They're gonna, if a film starts to sell, well, maybe they'll focus on that one. But if another movie's not selling, they're gonna let it go by the wayside. So I really, hate to say it, but I feel very nervous about distribution deals, and I got really screwed on a past one. So I try to, no matter what, keep some of the rights of my films. And like I say, these days I kind of parse it out. This guy can have Tubi and Hoopla. This person can have the DVD rights. I'm keeping Amazon. You know what I'm saying? Like I just basically don't put all my eggs in one basket has been my strategy. We'll see how it works over time.
I think that's smart, man. You got to diversify. It's kind of like, stocks and bonds. You don't just buy one stock and, keep that forever. You diversify your portfolio, and I think that's what you're doing. I think it's going to work out for you. Well, if you were to start over, let's say you said, okay, I'm going to start my filmmaking career all over again, starting right now. What three things? Just three. I know there's a lot that can be said, but what three things would you either do differently, or who would you bring with you that may make a different impact in the films that you're going to make, or how would you go about production differently?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would do is, when I first started making movies, I didn't necessarily have the film being profitable on the mind as much as I do now, or have in the last 5 years. I think I would start from that point. Even if the film was made for only $1,000, I would say I'm going to make it for $1,000. I'm going to make that back, and then I'm going to get that investor to double down, triple down. I would have focused on that from the start. I'm very grateful for the people that I've worked with over the years. But one thing that I would kind of advise everyone about getting into this is don't put as much, what do you call it? Don't put all your energy into the idea of partnerships
Hmm.
or a company, a group.
Yeah.
It's very likely to change. People move, they
Hmm.
lose interest, they start taking things for granted. I've learned that lesson time and time again. Running Wild Films used to be an actual company with 5 or 6 members.
Hmm.
Now none of those people are involved.
Hmm.
So, you put a lot of time and effort into those things. I wish I had just said, kind of realized things are going to come and go. I'm going to be the constant, and I'm going
Yeah.
to focus on the projects and my own development,
Hmm.
and just embrace the partners as they come and go. Um, and then third, um, one thing that I am focused on right now is prep. I haven't
Hmm.
prepped my projects enough,
Hmm.
and they've always been a little rushed.
Yeah.
I say, hey, I've written the script. In 3 months, we're going to shoot it. What I'm interested in doing next is really focusing on prep, and I think that's going to help the end product be better.
Right.
I felt that with a project I worked on earlier this year called Treasure Valley,
Hmm.
that I just put more attention into the script and prep, a script that I didn't write, but just getting ready to make it. And I could feel the difference on set. So that's
Mm.
what I would do if I was starting all over again. I'd put way more attention on that.
Well, Travis, I'm so excited for you, man, and everything that you're doing with 12 Westerns in 12 months. And I really appreciate you coming on to the show and sharing so much wisdom with us today. That's been awesome, awesome, awesome to have you on here on the show. I want to invite everyone that's watching to head over to his website to runningwildfilms.com. He's got a holiday sale going on right now. It's now through December 17th. You can go to runningwildfilms.com/store to check out select films and
Yep.
merchandise over there. Anything particular that you want to shout out as far as the store? Anything? What's your favorite Western that you produce? Anything that people should be looking out for?
Oh, I can't pick a favorite. I mean, they're like your children. You
Right.
they're all have problems, and you love every one of them. But yeah, the films are on there. They're on Amazon. They're on Tubi. A
Hmm.
lot of them are. Make sure you leave a review if you watch it on Amazon, because that's a big part of it moving up in Amazon's algorithm. But yeah, I hope everybody just takes some of this. Maybe it helps them on their next project. And the biggest thing that I've learned is don't take no for an answer. Don't
Hmm.
make a bunch of excuses. You can get your movie made. Just go out and do it.
I think that's the simplest advice. People ask me all the time. How do you make a movie? Just go out and do it. And you prove that you can do it on an iPhone
Yep.
even. So it's no excuses. It's if you have a story in mind or in your heart, get it out there. Well, thank you again for your time, Travis. Really appreciate you coming on the show. I want to thank everyone for watching. You can connect with me, Rod Kirby, at rodkirby.com. And also, I want you all to subscribe to our channel on YouTube for more interviews just like this with Mr. Travis Mills. Thank you all, and we will see you next time. Peace out. Hey, filmmaker Rod Kirby here. I just want to thank you for watching this interview. Check out another interview or more filmmaking content by clicking any of the boxes here. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel to be notified of future episodes. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.